woman saved from being killed for witchcraft. Burial of late journalist stopped. And Grand Chief commends Speaker Pomat.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us for today's news. Quick action by police stopped a group of people from killing a lay woman accused of witchcraft. She was taken from her home this morning and was about to be burnt on the banks of the Bumbu River when police arrived. We warn that some of the following images may be distressing.
Just before 8 this morning, a group of men dragged the Eastern Highlands woman from her home and took her to the banks of the Bumbu River. There she was stripped. They then forced her to stand on a makeshift platform while they conducted an interrogation. She was forced to admit to the killing of 3 of her neighbors using witchcraft. The brutal scene was witnessed by a large crowd, including her neighbor, Mary Rose Terra.
Morning block we no to sanab memlo inside lo wems sleep line. Na all tenti lo cookie mem bad bienke no kare come outside na. All puti laos do ablo mi lo la cookie mem.
Beside where she stood, her aggressors had already set alight tires in preparation to burn her. Just as she was about to be torched, a police unit arrived. They fired shots into the air, causing the crowd to flee. This is where she lived. A room in a small shack rented from this man. He was woken up early this morning by a crowd carrying what they described as a bamboo used for divination. What is most disturbing is the fact that everyone in the settlement who were present agreed that she was practicing witchcraft, a claim they can't really prove. They also blamed the woman for 3 previous unrelated deaths. Elizabeth is the latest victim of a long list of women who've been accused and tortured because of witchcraft allegations. For police, finding proof of the allegations and getting people to come forward as witnesses to the attack is difficult. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Ley.
Post-Korea journalist, the late Rosalind Albanian Evara, was not buried today as arranged after her funeral service yesterday sparked suspicions of ongoing domestic violence as her cause of death. Yesterday, friends and colleagues sought proper procedures and stopped her burial to identify the cause of death after graphic pictures of a badly bruised body were shown during her funeral. Today, her mother, Ella Albaniel, gave her consent in the presence of family members, homicide police and her late daughter's employer for a post-mortem to be conducted.
Emotions ran high yesterday after the funeral of the late business editor for Post-Korea, Rosalind Albaniel Evara, as graphic images of her bruised body were shown on a slide during her funeral service. The pictures, which were taken a day after her death, showed her badly bruised body. These prompted her colleagues in the media to seek proper procedures to carry out an autopsy before being laid to rest. Public Relations Coordinator at the National Fisheries Authority and friend Priscilla Maigu said late Rosalind had told her of her ordeal a week before her passing during a work trip to Kavieng.
When we took the trip, she had complained of pains and bruises on certain parts of her body.
Priscilla, who had laid a complaint yesterday with homicide, had requested for the deceased mother to give her consent for an autopsy to be conducted. News of Rosalind's passing last week shocked many of her colleagues until yesterday's funeral left many angry from the news of violence that she had endured over the years until her untimely passing.
This thing must not go hidden and be buried with her. That's why I'm here to speak to the police and get the consent of her mother, especially to have the body go through autopsy to reveal the exact cause of the death.
Rosalind, who was supposed to be buried today, was transported late last night by police and homicide unit to the funeral home for an autopsy to be conducted. Along with her colleagues in the PNG media and the wider community, Australia and Pacific media are also calling for justice for the late Rosalind Albaniel Evara. Stacey Yallo, National EMTV News.
The World Health Organization says Papua New Guinea's general trend on health has improved slightly. However, the country is faced with poor health indicators, especially child maternal deaths, and more work needs to be done to strengthen primary health care services.
The World Health Organization is a United Nations agency established in Papua New Guinea in 1975, assessing health trends in the country. Representative Dr. Luo Dapeng, when asked if Papua New Guinea's health indicators have improved, said achieving medium-term development goals entails complex challenges. While the country has embraced these challenges, the national government's focus is to implement policy directions to transform the health system.
The people life expectancy is about 40-something. Now we reach 63, 65 from male, female, and which means they dramatically improve the life expectancy in the country. However,
according to WHO Country Cooperation Strategy, May 2017, 80% of the population lives in rural areas, with records showing some of the worst indicators of child maternal mortality rates and common communicable diseases like malaria and tuberculosis.
That is compared with our other sister countries in the Pacific, we're still falling behind. For instance, the country have not reached earning the MDG goal, which is one of the few countries in the world. Most of the indicator MDG goal is health indicators. We are glad to know that the new government put the health in a priority.
Improving primary health care and service delivery is essential, and in recent times the political will and collaborative partnership has seen improvements on health.
Yeah, I think we have proved better service than before, and especially you say some hospital build up, but I think really a solution to better indicator is the primary health care level.
One of the service delivery models is human resources, which are an integral part of the national health system. However, the system lacks sufficient workforce numbers to improve primary health care, especially in rural areas.
I'm very glad that the government part is primary health care, free primary health care, and a subsidy has a policy in place. And I think the implement policy still have a long way to go. For instance, provide the fund flow to the front line.
Health is everyone's business, and the National Health Plan, which is the service delivery platform, demonstrates the country's commitment to strengthen primary health care. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
You're watching National EMTV News. We'll have more stories after these messages. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare has commended the decision by Parliament Speaker Job Pomat to restore cultural decorations removed from the National Parliament in 2013. In a media conference this afternoon, the Grand Chief says having the traditional decorations show a unified nation.
Out of politics but still active, the Grand Chief visited the National Museum and Art Gallery this afternoon to speak on recent events in Parliament. He says he is pleased with the decision to have the decorations and totems restored, and says it shows nothing but a country united by its many cultures.
From all parts of Papua New Guinea, everything was put together to make up a story that we belong to one country, one nation. We've developed ourselves and we thought this should be done. That's why I was most disappointed when our former speaker decided that these things should be removed.
It happened in 2013, part of the former Speaker Theo Zirinok's Parliament reform strategy that saw a number of decorations removed and some even destroyed. That prompted the National Museum to take it to court under the legal view that the Parliament is a national cultural property and it was illegal for any modification to its physical and artistic integrity without the museum's consent.
The court has established that the National Parliament is indeed a national cultural property and is subjected to the provisions of the National Cultural Property Preservation Act, administered by the National Museum and Art Gallery. The actions of the former Speaker to willfully decimate and remove cultural decorations in the Parliament is legally wrong and excusable.
Caretaker Manager Alois Kwaso also made clear that it is unconstitutional to place any additional items that were not there before. This includes the new unity pillar proposed by some churches, which he states is not illegal but will be in contempt of the May 2016 court orders.
The desire on the part of some Christians to bring in a new unity pillar of national identity is not only illegal, but is unconstitutional. The adoption of a new unity pillar would be contemptuous of the court decision of 31st of May 2016.
Meanwhile, Kwaso says the museum stands ready to have the decoration restored and will be seeking assistance from the national government. Stanley Oved Jr., National EMTV News.
The United Nations Resident Coordinator, Roy Trivedi, says they will continue to work with the government of Papua New Guinea in implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. This is to improve the lives of the vulnerable and bring resilient change in the country. Marking 72 years of this partnership, a PNG Data for Development website was launched by National Planning Minister Richard Maru.
Today, the United Nations in Papua New Guinea celebrates its 72 years since established in 1945. Resident Coordinator Roy Trivedi says while challenges remain, United Nations will continue to find better solutions to respond effectively to people's needs.
But also dealing with new problems that are emerging in a different kind of world. And the challenge for all of us, we work with governments and with civil society in every country.
Heads of the United Nations 14 agencies like UNAIDS and the International Organization for Migration also spoke to journalists about their roles and functions. Although there's lack of adequate funding for National AIDS Council Secretariat, UNAIDS will continue to work with the national government, church-based organizations and civil society organizations to address the HIV and AIDS epidemic from becoming severe pandemic.
We have a lot to do with trying to help different parts of either government or the church or civil society access resources to help fund their programs. So we work with each of those to leverage money from something.
Sustainable Development Goals champions from Team PNG also took part in the celebration at Tarama Aquatic Center, which involved students in the nation's capital. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
The 2019 referendum for Papua New Guinea's autonomous region of Bougainville is a focus for the United Nations. Resident Coordinator Roy Trivedi says the referendum will allow people to decide their future political status. And the United Nations will work closely with the national government and the autonomous Bougainville government to facilitate this referendum.
Women's representation and so on, working with colleagues in UN Women, but also other UN agencies, but also on things like with Capital Development Fund, trying to make sure that the governance environment for businesses to invest is right here. Also on things like peacekeeping and peace building, including Bougainville work.
Roxana Stelchik, the woman who told EMTV News she was the driver of the vehicle that was involved in the attempted carjacking outside Port Moresby, has signed an exclusivity deal with international media. EMTV News today confirmed on camera that Stelchik had signed the agreement and will not be speaking to local media on the incident. Her and her family were traveling down from Sogeri last Saturday when they were involved in an attempted car theft. The incident was captured on a dashboard camera and uploaded on social media.
The signing of the exclusivity deal comes after contradicting details of the ordeal were told to EMTV News, another local TV station, including the police. In the EMTV report aired last night, Stelchik said she was the one who reversed the vehicle uphill to get away from the carjackers because she wanted to protect her children. However, in the report aired by the other local TV station, the husband spoke on camera, saying that he was the one who drove the vehicle. MTV News also received contradicting responses from the two police units investigating the case. After MTV News realized that there were conflicting details of the stories that ran on both TV stations, we tried contacting Mrs. Steljic for a comment on this, but she replied in a text message saying she won't be commenting anymore on the incident because she signed an exclusivity deal with licensing iBreaking.com. In an off-camera interview with Mrs. Steljic on Sunday afternoon, the day after the alleged incident, she provided an edited 6-minute video clip of the ordeal, starting from where she believed the carjackers started tailing the family, right to where she reversed uphill at full speed before she found enough space to turn the vehicle around and head back to Sogeri. However, only 52 seconds of the edited clip was uploaded on social media, showing the moments leading up to the carjacking attempt. Today, MTV News confirmed the story Mrs. Steljic told the media about her father-in-law arriving in Papua New Guinea last Friday, but is yet to confirm if he left the country on Sunday, as she alluded to. This afternoon, we had an encounter with Mr. Steljic, who denied that his wife was driving.
The camera here now going. Yes, I was the driver.
You were the driver?
Yes, I was the driver.
At Elvish Brasserie around 5:30 Sunday. Going towards 6 p.m. in the evening.
Look, I don't know what she said, but you know, anyway, everything that we said to TV1 was actually how it happened. So, yeah. I don't know. So I don't even know when she talked to you guys or nothing, but yeah, she...
He then confirmed that the wife signed an exclusivity deal with an international media and asked to be left alone.
He says, no, I'm not the driver of the vehicle, she is. And then she says, yeah, I'm the driver of the vehicle, and she continues to...
Yeah, look, I don't know what happened there, you know, I don't know what, you know, she obviously said what she said, but, you know, it's got nothing to do with me, but she doesn't want to do any more interviews, yeah? We want to be really left alone because everybody keeps on calling. I'm not really interested in giving interviews.
And who is the agency that we have to call? Are they Australian based? Or?
Contact Roxy. I have no idea. Well, then there is a reason to it. I don't know why. So I really don't know. I'm staying out of it. I really don't apart from the interview we've done for TV1, I'm not really interested in anything else.
After the confrontation, Mrs. Steljic sent MTV a Facebook message denying that she was the driver and said there was a misunderstanding. Meanwhile, police investigations into this are continuing. Tekla Gunga, National MTV News.
Law and justice sector agencies in Madang are currently undergoing a juvenile justice training following the setup of the Provincial Juvenile Justice Committee in the province. The training is about juvenile justice and focuses more on the new legislation passed in 2014. Martha Lewis reports from Madang.
The training brings together police and correctional service officers, magistrates, NGOs, and other law and justice agencies in Madang. The juvenile justice program is facilitated by the Department of Justice. The training gives more emphasis on the use of restorative justice principles in the legislation. Restorative justice is a system that focuses on the rehabilitation of offenders through reconciliation with victims and the community at large.
Because juvenile justice doesn't just involve the Department of Justice or juvenile justice services, it involves all the stakeholders, right from the village courts level through to the corrective or institutions.
The training is important for the newly established Provincial Juvenile Justice Committee to take ownership and to work together with other concerned authorities. It will also help the community to be more proactive in their role in taking on programs for children who goes through the justice system.
We find that many young people who come through the justice system, they lack the ability to, proper decisions. It requires skills, or it requires, I guess, the ability to say what is right and what is wrong. And also we're looking at helping the children to continue on with their education programs, that we want to promote that coming through the justice system should not take the rights of children away, such as going to school.
Martha Louise, National EMTV News, Madang.
Climate change has a great impact on the agriculture sector. This has brought much concern for the food security of the country, but the Food and Agriculture Organization has strategies in place to address this.
The change in weather patterns has severely affected the farming system in Papua New Guinea. According to the head of the FAO in PNG, Ken Shimizu, they are implementing a variety of programs to strengthen the capacity and provide support in policy formulation to help farmers in the country.
One of the support that we are providing to the Department of Agriculture and Livestock is the development and implementation of a national food security policy and action plan. So within that plan, it also identifies the climate change risks and issues, and also possible interventions within the agricultural sector at the national and provincial and district level to adapt or mitigate towards the effect of climate change in the agricultural sector.
Another policy initiative FAO is working on is the development and implementation of a national e-agriculture strategy.
It's a partnership between the Department of Agriculture and Livestock and the Department of Information and Communication, and specifically the National Information and Communication Technology Authority. These two agencies, one that works on ICT and agriculture, partnering to see how we can harness information communication technology to promote agricultural development. And of course, this includes how do we harness the potential of ICT to mitigate and adapt to the effects of climate change. Basically, one of them would be how do we use information on changes in climate, weather patterns, agriculture productions. How do we communicate that effectively to farmers?
One objective of this e-agriculture strategy is to use ICT tools to help farmers adapt to climate change in the way they do farming. The question, however, still remains as to how soon can this be fully implemented to benefit farmers in PNG when it comes to agriculture and food security. Florence Jonduo, National EMTV News.
A Japanese global company is looking at establishing wind power energy technology in the country by distributing wind turbines. A seminar was held this morning introducing the item as another alternative source of electricity. It is new innovative technology for the country.
American-based company Zeros Wind Designs has partnered with global trading company Sojitz to bring wind energy technology into the country. This is the first time they're holding a seminar jointly facilitated by the Investment Promotion Authority. The aim of the seminar was to promote their product as an alternative source of electricity that can be used in settings ranging from residential and microgrid-based rural electrification to agricultural, corporate infrastructure and government applications. The turbine systems focus on distributed energy, where a specific machine's energy output is used on-site where the equipment is installed, as well as grid-connected applications. This means the units meet globally accepted requirements of grid and off-grid systems. The company is a global designer of wind power systems which consist of wind turbines at 2.4 kilowatts and 10 kilowatts and are currently operating in 110 countries. Meanwhile, Sojitz will provide training for engineering procurement contractors, which means job creation for locals. Merlin Diaukatam, National EMTV News.
What was once the Small Business Development Corporation has taken on a new identity. The Small Medium Enterprise Corporation, SMEC, was officially launched in Port Moresby today. Commerce and Industry Minister Wera Mori, in launching the new look entity, assured those present that the government remained committed to developing SMEs in the years ahead. but it will be difficult, especially with the government's ambition in creating 500,000 SMEs by the year 2030. In line with moves by the national government to grow the SME sector in Papua New Guinea, the Small Business Development Corporation has taken on a new identity to reflect this challenge. As of today, the SBDC is now the SME Corporation, SMEC. The new look launched by Commerce and Industry Minister Wera Mori.
I take this opportunity on your behalf now to bid farewell to the old logo of SBDC. And also to announce and welcome the new SME logo, corporation logo.
Minister Mori also encouraged the entity to come up with innovative ways in assisting SMEs, especially given the current difficult economic situation.
For those who cannot obtain loans, we must look at avenues as to how we could provide them seed capitals so that they don't sit back and become spectators.
The minister's sentiments reaffirmed by SMEC board chairman Michael Mell.
Now we have a new identity. We have a new identity and we know the role that we want to play. Our people are waiting and looking up on us.
The country's SME policy has set a target of creating 500,000 SMEs by the year 2030, a target that requires 37,000 SMEs to be created annually over the next 12 years. Whilst this creates a mammoth challenge, it is also an opportunity for SMEs to be innovative in how to go about seeking funding in the current economic circumstances.
Creation of over a million SMEs is not a simple task. We have to think outside of the box. There's a broad spectrum of business activities in which we have not even explored or cultivated or captured.
In the interim, Minister Mori has identified the manufacturing industry as well as agriculture, more particularly agricultural cooperatives, as the way forward for building SMEs in Papua New Guinea.
We need to revive that, and we're taking the drive under my ministry so that in doing so, we will create employment for at least 20 to 30,000 people.
The other initiatives that still in the pipeline is in the absence of credit, we're trying to, it's on the plan to establish a credit guarantee corporation, and that is so that we can have an institution that can provide that comfort to banks to lend to the SMEs, because lending to SME sector is high risk and a lot of banks do not want to go to it.
Time now to take a look at the market report, and the kina closed 5 points lower at $0.3120 US in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.3045 US, $0.3860 Australian dollars, $0.2553 euro, and 34.18 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold and copper closed higher, coffee and cocoa closed the day lower. Palm oil and crude oil closed higher, while copper closed the day lower. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed 54 points lower, the ASX 3 points higher, and the All Ordinaries 5 points higher. Here with Tuesday's news, we'll have more stories on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National EMTV News. National Fisheries Minister Patrick Bassa says the Frabel workers' strike is a management issue that has to be addressed. He said the National Fisheries Authority regulates the laws. However, it is the company's management that has to ensure that their staff have good working conditions and are paid well.
The Fisheries Minister Patrick Bassa says the recent cannery workers' strike in Lae is the result of a management issue that has to be addressed at that level. Mr. Bassa said his office cannot do much about the matter.
We only touch where the levels of laws are, our laws they cover, you know. Our limits go and finish where it says this is a minimum rate wage. You're supposed to pay this.
Workers from the Frabel cannery in Lae went on strike 3 weeks ago due to grievances over pay and working conditions.
The petition company MSM do away one time still want to increase payment workman.
They resumed work last week after being told that the management will be addressing issues with their pay. Most of the staff are being paid a minimum wage of 3 kina 50 toya per hour, with little to no increase in their wages in over 3 years.
If they are entitled to be paid, like NASFAN, you have to pay them.
Fish canneries in PNG employ over 10,000 people nationwide, many of whom are paid the minimum wage. Bosses says such companies must provide for their staff as they make a lot of revenue.
We know that canneries in Papua New Guinea, they are making money. Of course they are making money. They cannot deny that the fact that they don't make money, no. A lot of fish is going out.
Lucy Kopana, National EMTV News, Leh.
Turning overseas now, Bangladesh is now dealing with nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees who have fled Myanmar. According to the country's UN representative, Shamim Asham is calling on Myanmar to let them return and says despite claims to the contrary, fighting in Rakhine State has not stopped and aid agencies have not been allowed in.
Rohingya Muslims who've escaped Myanmar, neighbouring Bangladesh is a land of second chances. These refugees, part of a huge influx we saw across the border, are queuing for their first food supplies. These Rohingyas are the latest in a long line of victims of a sectarian and religious conflict that stretches back many decades.
This is a crisis that's been going on a long time. You guys must be feeding people who have probably sort of been through this, crossed the border many years ago.
That's true. We've been feeding for 25 years. You can see it in the camps. At the bottom of the camp, there's refugees from 25 years ago. You move upwards, 10 years ago, 1 year ago, and now you can see who's arrived yesterday.
These guys arrived this week?
It's incredible.
A few days ago, we found Abu in the arms of his big sister Mimuna by the side of a road. Limp and lifeless, acutely malnourished, we alerted UNICEF. After several days in the clinic, Abu's back from the brink. The future of the refugees is being discussed at the highest levels between the Bangladesh and Myanmar governments. At the UN General Assembly, Bangladesh's Prime Minister made it clear where she thinks the blame for the crisis lies.
This forcibly displaced people of Myanmar are fleeing an ethnic cleansing in their own country where they have been living for centuries.
It's a charge Myanmar strongly denies, blaming Rohingya insurgents for attacks on civilians. The funeral procession of Rashida Mohammed. He was 75 and never saw Muslim and Buddhist reconcile in his homeland. A younger generation may one day see this happen, but for now, many Rohingya will live and die on foreign soil.
The widow of an American soldier killed in action says US President Donald Trump could not remember her husband's name when he rang to offer his condolences. But in true Trump style, he punched right back via Twitter. The American soldier was killed in an ambush in Niger, Africa.
Sergeant LaDavid Johnson was laid to rest at the weekend, but there's no resting in peace. Instead, there's sound and fury. His widow, Maisha Johnson, has spoken for the first time about the now infamous call from President Trump.
The president said that he knew what he signed up for, but it hurts anyways. And it made me cry because I was very angry at the tone of his voice and how he said it. Like he couldn't remember my husband's name.
She also revealed that the US military refused to let her see her husband's body.
I don't know nothing. They won't show me a finger, a hand. I know my husband's body from head to toe. And they won't let me see anything. I don't know what's in that box. It could be empty for all I know. But I need to see my husband.
The phone call from Donald Trump came last week as the Johnson family waited at Miami airport to receive his body. But after Maisha Johnson's interview today, the president tweeted within an hour to challenge her account. I had a very respectful conversation with the widow of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson and spoke his name from beginning without hesitation. But from a former defense secretary, a warning.
The president diminishes the office of the presidency if he now goes into an attack on Congresswoman or on the widow, and vice versa. It's just, this is not good, particularly at a time when there's so many other issues.
The White House had been hoping the focus relentlessly this week would be on tax reform and no other distractions. But the president felt he had to respond to the fallen soldier's widow. It seems this is a president who prefers an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth than he does turning the other cheek. The president this evening has been presiding over a ceremony giving a Vietnam War veteran his Medal of Honor, even though Donald Trump, like many other wealthy young men, managed to avoid the draft himself. America's wars and how it treats its military families, a source of conflict then, a source of conflict today.
You're watching National EMTV News. Up next, some sporting updates in Trukai Sports. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. To Rugby League, Emilia Cook has been named in the PNG Orchid 24-member squad after missing out on selection into the Australian Jillaroo side. This was officially announced by the PNG RFL chairman when naming the Oil Search PNG Orchid 24-member squad for the World Cup.
The inclusion of Emilia Cook in the Oil Search PNG Orchid side, which comes as a bonus to the women's national team. Orchids coach Dennis Miles says Cook will not be a new face in the camp, having played for the Australian Jillaroo's PM's 13 side against the Orchids last month. The 24-year-old will bring experience and versatility to the side. Cook will join fellow Queenslander Jasmine Taumafai as the two overseas-based players, amongst a host of local talent in the PNG side. According to Coach Mile, Taumafai cemented her spot with an impressive performance in last Friday's 30-6 win over Far North Queensland All-Stars in Innisfail, Australia. The 24-member squad, however, is dominated by players from the Southern and Highlands region, with a handful from the northern part of the country. The team is captained by Kathy Niap. The squad is expected to assemble in Port Moresby next week to prepare for the Women's Rugby League World Cup, which kicks off in Sydney on November 16, 2017. Shane Saroya, National EMTV Sports.
The Papua New Guinea Kumuls are only 3 days away from their Rugby League World Cup 2017 opener against Wales here in the nation's capital at the National Football Stadium. Former Kumul Marcus Bai was part of the Kumul outfit in the year 2000 that went to the quarterfinals, has challenged the current crop to be better than that performance.
Since the Rugby League World Cup debut in 1985, Papua New Guinea went on to appear in 6 editions of the World Tournament. Their strongest performance came 15 years later in the RLWC 2000 when the PNG Kumuls with the likes of former Melbourne Storm and Papua New Guinea's very own Marcus Bai fought their way to the quarterfinals where they lost to Wales 8-22. Years of waiting for another go at the force that took away their chances of a first shot at the finals have now come down to days. In 3 days' time, the PNG Kumuls will host Wales, determined to come out on top. And Wales will be arriving tomorrow with their own agenda, and that is to cause an upset in their opener match. Having totaled over 50 points in their previous meets with the Kumuls, they now look to continue their undefeated ways against the home side. Unlike PNG, after the debut in 1975, Wales appeared in 4 World Cups and made their way up where they are now currently ranked 9th, which is 6 ranks ahead of the Kumuls. But this is a new breed of Kumuls who have proven quite remarkable in the lead-up to this World Cup. After missing 2 finals in the past 2 editions, the Kumuls will run out at the National Football Stadium grounds on Saturday, aiming to win the opener in front of their crowd and the backing of over 7 million people nationwide. Dinirose Raiko, National EMTV Sports.
And Kumuls coach Michael Marum has named his team for this weekend's World Cup clash against Wales. James Seguiaro has been named in the extended 20-member bench, along with Paul Aiton in the lock position. Asebos has also been named in the starting lineup, but will go through final medical tests this Thursday to qualify.
We'll come up with the final 18 Friday afternoon, and that 18 men will train with us until Saturday game day warm up, and then if nothing happens there, the 17th stays here. It's 50%, yeah, and I didn't train with the rest of the team today. I did his rehab with the physio, so you know it's been given till tomorrow to prove his fitness, medical fitness. Yeah. We sort of went with him. I think he was really good at training when he came back, joined the site. You know, his experience is what we need out there. I think you know we went with the Wellington, Stanton Albert starting at front rower, and you know Paulie at lock forward. So you know he's been around long enough to handle that. Do well in that position.
And we'll be back with more of Trukai Sports after these messages. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To cricket overseas, and one of Chris Gayle's West Indian teammates has taken the stand in the cricket star's defamation trial. Dwayne Smith says reports about Gayle exposing himself are false, but his credibility was questioned, and he admitted sending the same woman a suggestive message.
Chris Gayle, bold with the bat, bold in front of the cameras.
Has it had a big impact on your career?
My career will always be alive. I'm the universal boss.
With West Indies opening batsman Dwayne Smith behind him.
Do you remember the incident?
Taking to the stand in Gayle's defamation case against Fairfax newspapers over a series of articles claiming he exposed himself to team massage therapist Leanne Russell in 2015. That would be something you would remember if it happened. It didn't happen, he said. But under cross-examination, Smith admitted sending a text message to Miss Russell during a massage the day beforehand. Sexy, he wrote. It prompted an email to players. Leanne has encountered a few uncomfortable situations with members of the team. Please, at all times, treat her in a professional and respectful way. 11 months later, Miss Russell saw this interview exchange between Gayle and Mel McLaughlin.
Don't blush, baby.
I'm not blushing.
And contacted Fairfax sports editor Chloe Salthow. She said it made her feel physically sick, Salthow told the court, adding Russell wanted to show support for Mel and other women working in sport. Leanne Russell wanted to remain anonymous when the article was published, but will no doubt face a media storm when she gives evidence tomorrow. She's expected to say she felt devastated that she was treated in such a demeaning and disrespectful way.
And that ends Trukai Sports. Up next, your weather details for the next 24 hours. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
A look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours. A shower or two expected in Daru in the southern region with a top of 32. To the Momasi region, fine weather expected in Lae and Wau. To the New Guinea Islands region, a shower or two expected in Buka. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg can expect some fine weather, becoming cloudy later on.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
And that's the news, sports and weather for today, Tuesday the 24th of October 2017. On behalf of the news team, pleasant viewing. Good night.